Opening theaters this week is the romantic comedy Anyone But You, and here's my review. Will Gluck has made a career out of directing subversive comedies that cleverly wink to the audience. Having previously tackled the romantic comedy in Friends with Benefits, he returns to that territory with this film, and while it's pleasant enough, it plays things largely standard, even as it adopts a Shakespeare-like plot of coincidences and characters pretending to be something they're not. While a few humorous bits occur from time to time, there's not much about Anyone But You that particularly stands out. The movie already begins with a familiar character overhears something they shouldn't trope, which drives the entire plot. It definitely leans into the Shakespeare comic romance template as characters plot and things unravel in certain directions. A few of these can be fun and result in laughs, which is a credit to Gluck's skill as a comedy director and especially Glen Powell's performance. He understands the material and succeeds in showing Ben trying to outsmart the other characters, as well as getting into his own shenanigans. Sweeney is okay as Beatrice and even gets the opportunity to form a bit of slapstick, but the spark is not quite as strong between her and Powell as there could have been. The romance goes about the way you expect, but nobody watches a rom-com to be surprised. The more dialogue-driven scenes are not that compelling. It's when the actors are allowed to be a bit sillier that the humor lands more. Anyone But You does lean into its R rating in surprising ways, so those looking for a return to the steamy romantic comedy will find that here. After spending the last decade directing family films, one gets the sense of Will Gluck wanting to return to something more adult-oriented. What's most surprising is how otherwise standard the presentation of the story is. While we know Bea and Ben will eventually get romantically involved, the execution could still be more interesting than utilizing a lot of the expected storytelling devices. The supporting actors are okay, but don't bring too much to the table. Meanwhile, the Australian setting mostly feels like an excuse for this cast to get a nice vacation, although there are some nice shots of Sydney Harbour, and a koala provides one of the funnier bits. Everything is set up and choreographed a mile away, with one awaiting the obvious joke to happen. With that said, Gluck does throw in a few comedic curveballs from time to time. Anyone But You is the very definition of an airplane movie, although Will Gluck has often managed to rise above those in his filmography. While it has its moments here and there, and Glen Powell particularly shows some comedic abilities, there's not a lot to the story that jumps out as anything all that remarkable. One can see it being an attempt to return to the old-school romantic comedy and farcical Shakespearean romance, with Much Ado About Nothing cited as the main inspiration. But it's not a movie that'll stick in one's memory for very long. There just needed to be a bit more spark than what we get in the final film.